videos on YouTube that show the Vatican, and there's a very formal mass going on. And it sounds like, and this is actually what people are saying, well, it sounds like it's some kind of consecration or invocation of Lucifer. And the claim is that this is Pope Francis and the Vatican worshiping the devil.
Why is there a Vatican observatory run by Vatican astronomers in the state of Arizona? Learn why these Vatican astronomers are involved with Project Lucifer.
The Pope is spiritual leader to millions of Catholics. He's also CEO of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, the Vatican.
Have you ever performed an exorcism on a priest accused of molesting a child? With all of the scandals we've seen recently, do you think the devil's presence is stronger today? With all of the allegations we've seen recently of sexual abuse involving priests, do you believe that is the devil's work?
He tempts everyone in every environment.
The first thing we need to do if we're going to find out if the devil is at the Vatican is take a tour underneath the Vatican. As we arrive underneath the Vatican, we see that it is laid out in a number of rooms marked by letters, as we could see in this aerial view map. Now we will be exploring some of the rooms in this map. Let's start off by looking in room C here. You see that this is a mausoleum of Lucius Tullius Zethus. The Vatican goes on and explains that this room was used for offerings to the dead. We read, view of the north wall and mosaic floor. In the corners of the mosaic floor there are 8 marble squares with circular holes through which offerings to the dead were poured during the funeral rites carried out in the burial chamber. So here we have a room where offerings are done to the dead. That's pretty common in Catholicism. Now if we look in the next room, room E, so here in this room they have a vase which has the image of a Medusa. If we look in this room, we see that some of the stucco decorating the walls. Here we have a personification of Oceanus. You remember the New Testament book of Revelation says that a beast comes out of the ocean. And so we say, why is the Vatican having these foreign gods underneath its basilica? Why is it protecting them? If it was a true church, it couldn't be doing it for the sake of art, especially with all the evil things that are happening. Here on the wall, it says there is a depiction of Lucifer. That is the light bearer, the morning star. On the opposite of the wall, there is a drawing of Vesper, the evening star, cosmic symbol of the human life cycle. We find out that when we get to room U, here we have a clear depiction of Lucifer underneath the Vatican at St. Peter's Basilica. We ask ourselves, why are they keeping this image of Lucifer underneath the Vatican? Again, you would think if you're a Christian church, you would not want to have any of these images.
What does this have to do with the Vatican? I'll tell you something that I haven't talked about this on radio anywhere, Steve. But this, from the beginning, this has been one of the creepiest ideas surrounding the arrival of Petrus Romanus, the false prophet. And this came to me when we were doing this research. Was there, related to Malachi Martin's vow, that an occult ritual was performed in 1963 at the Vatican and Target Chapel in South Carolina involving a woman for the purposes of pregnation, or possibly there was a young priest for the express purpose of instilling something within him or those priests that were there. But the whole purpose of it was to enthrone Lucifer over the Vatican, according to this Jesuit priest.
Archbishop Vigano, who you mentioned earlier, he was the nuncio, the ambassador to the U.S. for the Vatican here for about 5 years. He also ran all of the ambassadors or embassies around the world for the Vatican.
Well respected.
Very well respected. Man of integrity, a sharpshooter, and a man who has been a whistleblower in the past. In 2011, he wrote secret letters to Pope Benedict at the time, outing corruption in the Vatican. Those were leaked and became the VATICAN scandal. It was his exposés, meant only for the Pope's eyes, that got worldwide attention.
Why is he releasing this letter?
Well,
he's 77 years old.
He claims he wants to unveil his conscience. He can't go to his death with the information he has, and he sees the corruption and the double dealing in the Vatican.
And that all of that was connected in another book by Malachi Martin to a final conclave that would bring to the throne of Peter a pope under the control of Satan, the false prophet. And of course, according to the prophecy of the popes, the final conclave is the one following Benedict, which right now, according to the Vatican's own news sources, here's the creepy part of this, was in this ritual that Malachi Martin brought up. And it came to me one day that the Vatican's interest right now in alien intelligence, and if you remember, who was it? Was it Balducci? It was one of the Catholics' own bishops some years ago who said that the Vatican was already in contact. Remember that? The Bishop of Rome, who said they were all, years ago, that they were already involved in contact, interacting with. If you read, again, I'm not going to stay on Malachi Martin, but if you read his books, he was making a very specific case that there was an incarnation that was set to occur that would, in the final conclave, bring about an individual who essentially is not just under the control of Satan. He could even be in some aspect, not like the Antichrist, but in some reality, kind of a Satan incarnate. In other words, something entirely different about him.
When the angel takes John the seer and shows him the great harlot. And we know that harlot as the whore of Babylon, another image that is speculated upon, discussed, preached, and oftentimes there's great mystery as to who she is and what she represents. The book then goes into great detail as to how she is described, and then describes the meaning of those details as the image progresses. The whore is described as very richly dressed, adorned in great wealth, which is seen as the wealth of Rome and the empire that it dominates. Symbolically, the whore is identified as Babylon, and that brings to mind the empire that destroyed the temple in Jerusalem in 587, leading to the great exile in Babylon. The first Babylon, under Nebuchadnezzar, destroyed that first temple. And by the time the book of Revelation has been written, the New Babylon, the Roman Empire, under the leadership of soon-to-be Emperor Titus, the second temple was destroyed. And so Rome is seen very much as the New Babylon. And so the whore of Babylon is a personification of Rome, the mother of harlots and a great abomination on the earth. She's described as being drunk with the blood of the martyrs, again hearkening to the persecution against Christians that the Roman Empire is undergoing. She's identified by a tattoo of sorts written on her forehead. So her identification is written on her forehead. And that is common form of identification for Roman prostitutes and is consistent with those in the book of Revelation that have been marked with the lamb and the beast on their foreheads. Those who follow the beast are marked on their wrists or their foreheads. Those who follow the lamb have his mark on their foreheads. Here, this common identification for Roman prostitutes is now seen on the whore of Babylon. Now, the scarlet beast is described as having 7 heads, 10 horns, and is covered with blasphemous names. So it's identified with blasphemy and abomination. This is the power behind the empire that is the great harlot of the earth, the great Roman Empire. And the book of Revelation explains the 7 heads stand for 7 hills, which is a traditional reference to the city of Rome, which is the power of the great Roman Empire. It is also stated in the book of Revelation that the 7 heads stands for 7 hills, but it also stands for 7 kings. 5 who have fallen, 1 still lives. And when you look at the immediate history behind the book of Revelation, you see of the Caesar dynasty of emperors, we have Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero have all died. And now one, the Emperor Domitian, still lives. The scarlet beast is also described as having 10 horns, which symbolize 10 kings who are not yet crowned. Because the 10 horns are later described as turning on the harlot. The 10 horns of the beast turn on the harlot and strip her of her riches and devour her flesh, setting her afire. So suddenly is described the fall of the great whore of Babylon.
It wasn't very long ago, a couple years ago, when the Vatican actually called together a bunch of academics at the Vatican for consideration of the philosophical and the theological questions posed by the discovery of extraterrestrial life. You remember that? It was, I think, 2009. And the Pontifical Academy of Sciences there in Rome, Italy, they convened this 5-day conference. There was something like 30 world scientists that went there to the summer residence of Pope Benedict XVI's grounds, and they in the Pontifical Astronomical Observatory, I don't remember who all, but it was a conference that was called by the Vatican to ask astronomers and astrobiologists from the United States, France, Britain, Switzerland, Chile, to present to the Vatican's philosophers and theologians, and actually even just a number of the members of the Catholic hierarchy among the College of Cardinals, to have them to present to those members of the Catholic hierarchy what is the mounting evidence of the existence of sentient life on other planets outside of the solar system. Now that's what the public understood this meeting was all about. But what Sheehan is saying, and he would know, is that the principal purpose of the conference was to actually indoctrinate, help, adjust, introduce the leaders of the Catholic Church to prepare for the reality of extraterrestrial intelligence. But at the conclusion of that Vatican conference, at the time, the Jesuit director of the Vatican Observatory, Father Jose Gabriel Funes, and he said the questions of life's origin and whether life exists elsewhere in the universe deserves serious attention based on the disclosure or the revealing of alien intelligence. They're already here. They're already walking among us, and the reason we wouldn't recognize them is because they look exactly like us. Now, that's very strange. Some people would reject that entirely, but I wondered if that wasn't the astronomer Royale's way of saying what he, in fact, believed.
Pope Francis reiterated his view Monday that everyone has the right to be baptized, and apparently that invite extends even to Martians. The pontiff described the hypothetical situation during morning mass. According to Vatican Radio, Francis said, if, for example, tomorrow an expedition of Martians came, and some of them came to us, and one says, but I want to be baptized, what would happen?
When we do science, when we try to figure out could there be life elsewhere, we have to recognize that the theological and the philosophical questions that come out of the possibility of alien life are questions we'll never exhaust, and questions that don't have pat answers. The whole story of angels tells us about a group created in a relationship with God, having to make a choice for good and evil. It had nothing to do with the fall of Adam and Eve, as far as I understand it, and yet had these same choices and these same issues of right and wrong. Doing something just for your own self-benefit if it hurts another person is morally questionable. To reject love is a terrible sin. To reject God's love is a terrible sin.